if you're in the game dev space for money as a
Mhm.
whole, if you think a game dev is a get rich quick scheme, you're in the wrong space. I can tell you that now. I can tell you that it's the wrong space for that.
Hello, this time we have Josh, Managing Director from Stratton Studios. Hi everyone, thanks a lot for joining this video. This time we have Josh from Stratton Studios. I'm really happy to have him here in the interview. So yeah, welcome Josh to this YouTube channel. I'm really happy to have this conversation with you. So yeah, if you can introduce yourself, where you're located, what are you doing? You have a studio for game development. So yeah, if you can share that with us.
Yeah, no worries at all. So, firstly, my name's Josh Loveridge. I'm Managing Director of Stratton Studios. We are a game studio and publisher based in Wicklow, Ireland. We've been around for about 4-5 years now in total. We publish games on Xbox, PlayStation, and we are starting to look at other platforms, the Nintendo Switch and stuff like that. And we mainly focus on single player narrative driven titles, whether that be from horror experiences all the way to role playing games. So we kind of niche in on the single player kind of narrative genre, and we specifically focus within typically the Halloween time period. So we're massive fans of Halloween at the studio, and
Nice.
we really kind of push that narrative in our games. So it's good.
Yeah, I saw the screenshots of the games that you have, and yeah, there's this guy with the pumpkin head, and then so every year in the around the Halloween time, it's when you release the games. That's more or less the cycle that you have.
Yeah, so typically we like to release a game every year for Halloween. That's our typical cycle. This year it's going to be slightly different. It's actually not going to be Halloween this year. It's going to be slightly later. As we are starting to branch out into newer kind of more abstract genres within the single player narrative space. That maybe doesn't focus so much on Halloween. So we're starting to kind of, as we call it at the studio, level up a little bit and take a little bit longer on our dev cycles to really push the quality of our titles up and really start to, break new ground within the space and to try and do things that maybe haven't been done before. So that's kind of where we're at now. But typically, we like to get a game out every Halloween, and we will have some items out on Halloween, whether that's, we've recently jumped into the NFT space. So we've a collection going on there. So we're always doing
Nice.
loads of things, and we potentially have a book coming out also. So we're kind of
Perfect.
doing loads of stuff.
I, I want to know more about it. Uh, but yeah, okay. First, tell me about more about your story. So I saw that the studio was founded around 2018, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but then you were doing some game development before. How was this transition from going for maybe you were a solo indie game dev, and then you transition from to a studio. So tell us about that. How was that story?
Yeah. So my journey started about, I'd say, God, it's coming up on, I'd like probably 8-9 years now at this stage. It's been a while. So essentially I started out coming out of education and maybe not knowing where I specifically wanted to go or what I even wanted to do. I didn't really know. But the one thing I did know in life was that I loved games. I loved games. And so essentially based upon that, and that logic, I kind of said, well, okay, right, I don't really know what else I want to do, so I'm gonna try this game dev stuff and see where I go. So I studied game development, um, and kind of the digital media space, in college essentially. I done that, and quickly realized that this was where I needed to be. This was what I've been looking for. This is kind of, this is what's, it became the game. The making the games became the game for me. And, I just loved it. I loved every aspect of it. I loved the challenge. I loved the late nights kind of trying to solve these random problems that pop up every day, and they're so different. I loved how abstract the space is, how new the space is, and how much room there is to grow within the space. I just loved everything about it. I loved everything. So then, based upon that, and while I was in college, I essentially kind of said, all right, okay, I want to be in this space for the future. This is what I want to do in life. How do I do it? So I went around, I talked to every, company there was in the country. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, in Ireland, we've very few game development companies. We've really, you could
Yeah,
count,
there's not so much going on there in
yeah,
terms of big studios. I think there's not so much going on
you
there.
can count on one hand, really,
Okay.
the number of studios, to be honest with you, that are really actually, proper studios that are actually professional, game dev studios. You can only count on one hand. And most of them now, I will know, aren't even Irish owned. They're mostly just venture capitalist funded, projects that are based here for corporation tax reasons. So, because Ireland's got quite good corporation tax, so a lot of external studios based are guys here. So essentially, I went around to everyone, I had a chat, and I was like, okay, I want to be in this space. And everyone said to me, it's not going to happen. No, no, no. There's no jobs in the game dev space in Ireland. If you want to get a job, you will have to travel over to Canada or one of these places, Montreal, all these different places to get a job. And I said, no, that's not happening. I was like, just because it hasn't been done before. I've always been a contrarian in that if someone tells me something can't be done, I just always assume it's because someone hasn't tried hard enough. Um, so I based upon that and then conversations that I had with both the lecturers in colleges, every, studio owners, I said, okay, right, I'm going to do this. I don't know how. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about running the business, but I'm going to do it. So I said, okay, let's do that. I started out, I formed a company called Loveridge Designs. Now,
It was not at the time Stratton Studios. It was another company
yeah,
before that.
yeah.
Okay.
So it was called Loveridge Designs. Now, Loveridge Designs, so I quickly realized based upon starting that company that you couldn't just do game development in Ireland. You needed to do other things to have positive cash flow. That's one of the biggest things I push for game studios is you have to have money coming in every month, consistent. And so I said, okay, so we started offering a wide variety of services from animation to websites to programming to all these different media related elements. And then I quickly realized it kind of sparked it, and I realized that I love that space too, and that was I was very good at it, and we were making a lot of money from it. It was
Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
yeah.
So you were making a lot of money doing what again?
So we were doing kind of acting as a marketing and advertising agency. Um, we were
Okay.
we were making a lot of money doing that, and so essentially, that kept going, this cycle where the game side of things and the advertising was kind of mixed, and
Mm-hmm.
then essentially fast forward a year, I then decided, okay, this isn't going to work. It can't be both mixed together. It needs to separate. It needs to be two different things. So then the company split in two. And that's when Stratton
Okay.
Studios was born. Um,
Okay.
yeah, that's when Stratton Studios was born. And then Loveridge Designs then got kind of dissolved and was made into a company called Loveridge Digital. And Loveridge Digital
Mm.
is still ongoing today.
Mm-hmm.
And we've a couple offices around the globe. So we're doing quite well in that. So that's
Nice.
we mainly work in the high end kind of content creation space with that side of things. So we'd be working with companies like McLaren, Ferrari, Disney,
Wow.
on projects. Yeah. So we've worked on stuff like Star Wars and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. And it's a nice space to be in. But so aside from that, so that's what happened on that end of things. And then the game kind of Stratton Studios was formed. And then ever since then, we've just kind of been kind of keeping our same cycle, just kind of improving our team, getting better and making new friends within the space and just continuing to grow. Up to date as of now, we've always self-funded all our games and we've never worked with a publisher. And we don't plan to really in the future. We like our cycle. We think that things are really starting to heat up. And yeah, we're just loving what we're doing really. So that's really a history of kind of how I went from just a single guy doing it to now a
Yeah.
couple different companies, and so it's not the typical journey that someone takes within the game dev space. Typically, someone in the game dev space that have maybe come out of college, they'll go and work in like AAA for a little bit, and then they'll kind of do a side project on the side, and then so that's the typical route. But I was kind of a different kind of methodology to it. And also another thing that we always do is like at studios, we're not just working on our own games. That's another important thing to note. We also do kind of a lot of contract work with the AAA kind of space and working on big projects on a consultancy basis. And, we're also working with third-party entities on projects they want to develop also. So it's, I've always approached game design and development as the core thing is the core ideology of making something that someone loves, but also in the back of my mind, realizing that you got to make money too. It's got to be about the business end of things also, which is very important. I think it gets brushed over a lot. And so we mainly I push a lot of the business side of stuff. But also at the heart of that is the players. Because the main thing to realize is that the players really are the heart of your studio. And without your players, you've nothing. That's what I'm always saying to people. Like, people are like, oh, you're doing all these great things with the game. I'm like, I'm just making a product. That's, it's the players that are bringing it to life. It's the players that are,
True.
experiencing it. So it's all about the players for us. And, that's something that we're hoping that gets adopted more within the space, because I feel everything's lost that a bit. I think over the last maybe 10 years, everything's kind of we've lost our vision as a whole industry. I think we've went away from a player-focused approach to more of a social gratification-based approach, which I feel isn't the particular way that grew the space to the heights that it is today. And I think it will need to go back to the way where the players are the focus rather than, how many skins you've got on Fortnite or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's good.
Nice. So yeah, probably if developers start focusing more on the player side, probably they also will start selling more their games. Probably their games will be more attractive to the players instead of only focusing on themselves and making themselves only, as you say, as a social currency that, okay, that I have this game, I have these perks, then I'm going to be worth more. But at the end, it's the player that have to focus for your
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah.
Extremely important. And I think a point to add on that would be that if you're in the game dev space for money as a whole, if you think a game dev is a get rich quick scheme, you're in the wrong space. I can tell you that now. I can tell you that it's the wrong space for that. It's game development is an expression of you as a person. And I think that's important to know. It's an expression of what you want to kind of convey to the player and the experiences maybe you want the player to have.
Right.
And I think it's important to always remember that and kind of not get too caught up in, how many downloads your game has or
Indeed.
how many units it's sold. I mean, it's important, like, when you're paying wages to people,
but that's the
it is
second
important.
phase, right? It's not the main goal. It would be the second.
Yeah. Yeah. On our end, I never even started looking at, worrying about how many sales we've got or how many anything like this until I started paying employees. That's really it. As long as they're covered, I'm happy. And that's really the way I look at it. And the reason being is because at the end of the day, that's the approach that brings the success. because success doesn't come when you are constantly, bound and, I need to get this, I need to get 10 more sales, I need to squeeze, 8 more units this week. It's not going to work. It's all about how much more people can I impact this week,
Hmm.
and here's the thing we always say, and we do it a lot, and we're going to continue to do it, is every single day you should try and make someone's life just that tiny bit better.
Ah, nice.
Just by on social channels, every day, just by telling another game developer, hey, your work looks great. I hope you're having a nice day. That looks great. That looks awesome. Have a nice day. Just by saying them one little things is so important. And even to your players, and we have this thing internally. Anytime anyone talks about our game, we have to thank them, because at the end of the said enough. You see all these AAA games and you see these all games with thousands of comments, hundreds of thousands of comments, and they don't get thanked for it. And
Yeah,
I think that's crazy. I do think it's crazy. Like, they're taking the time out of their day. They're committing the time to your work.
yeah.
And you
Time
should,
and
you
money.
should, yeah, time and money, and they should be rewarded for that, because at the end of the day, it's not a one-way street. Game development is like a relationship. That's the way I look at it. You have to be both ways, and if you treat your player base well, your player base will bring that back to you. A lot of our players, regardless of what game, and here's a funny thing actually we've noticed, and I've noticed, regardless of what game we make, our players will buy our game and play it. Not because they like the game, not because not because they don't care what the game is. It's not about that. It's about the kind of the idea of where it's a community that we give back to them, they give back to us in other ways. It's that, and that's the type of ecosystem I think is important to push, and is the importance. I think that's how game dev really kind of started off. Like, if anyone hasn't like looked at where kind of games actually started, it was all about sharing, really. People selling, little like discs of what they've made through magazines, and kind of sharing with each other and trading. That's how it all started. And, that's what made the big companies that we see today great. So I don't see why we should move away from that.
And yeah, as a specific example, do you have some specific examples of what has worked for you for having this relation for with other people, with other players, game developers? You were saying that giving them something good, yeah, a good comment during the day, but maybe a player that you're not in contact with him. How do you build these relationships?
Yeah. So so that's and I've about 2 years ago, I found a methodology internally. I
Mm-hmm.
call it the give, get mentality.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is you need to give twice as much as you want to get.
Yeah.
Now, for any player, say for example, I first time interacting with a player, I'm never going to even mention, and I would like him to try our games. I would like him to, be involved in our ecosystem in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just going to send them a message and say, hey, play our game. Here's a link to buy. It doesn't work. And to us, what we would rather do is we'd rather get to know the person. We'd reach out to them and we'd say, hey, listen, I've seen some of your posts on social media. They resonate with what we believe in too. I like it. I think I'd love to get to know you more. Would you be interested in joining our community of like-minded people? It's just really a group where we all talk, and I think you'd like it. And some people join, some people don't. And what we find is that once people join over time, before we know it, they're sending us screenshots that they platinum their games and, got all the achievements and they're playing them. And we don't ask. That's the thing. We don't ask
It
players to
comes
buy
naturally,
because,
right?
yeah, because here's the thing, right? And here's something to always realize. From a psychological perspective, the more you ask of someone, the more likely they are going to push away.
Yeah.
Humans nowadays are constantly bombarded. You go onto social media within
Man, all
two
the ads
seconds.
and all the
Yeah,
people who are buy this, give me
yeah.
this, give me this, give me this. It's, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, and that it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work. So what we do is we do the opposite approach. We go, if you want to buy our game, there is a link there. You can do it. We're not pressuring you to do it. Like, it's no pressure at all, to buy our games. We'd appreciate if you would. But what happens is that when we're interacting with people and say, for example, a player joins our community, they might say to us, I've always wanted to, be in a game in some way, or I always wanted to do this. They love sharing their ideas because the players like to live through other people. That is the core of what they play games for, a lot of them. And especially our community, because they're all single player narrative driven games that we make. So that's the type of genre they're interested in. So they like living through other people. So the same methodology can be applied to us as game developers. So our players like to live through us and they like to help with the development of our games. Like if we give a player the choice of saying, hey guys, we're working on these new character models. What are your thoughts? Which one do you prefer? Which one would you like to see? And people like that. And people are like, oh yeah, I like that one, or I like that one. And then, on a few occasions, we've had people reach out and say, hey, I've always wanted to be in a game. Can I get my name in the credits, or is there anything I can do? Where I would just say, yeah, sure, no
Oh, nice.
worries. That's fine.
That's a
Like,
nice gesture. Yeah.
yeah, like and that's the type of things we'll give back to our community. And also we do we obviously put a lot of stuff out on social media, so we're doing like kind of reacting videos. So essentially any of our game dev react videos that we do on YouTube, they're
Yeah.
all requested by our community. So for
So people
example,
are asking you, okay, can you review this video game
yeah,
as a game developer?
yeah,
Okay, that's how it comes. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so that's what we're always coming up with new ways for our players to get value back. Like for example, we published our NFT collection. Here's another example. We published our NFT collection probably a month ago. Anyone in our community of our players who wanted an NFT, we gave them the full collection for free, and we just sent it to them. And now if they were to like, just as a like a comparison, now if they were to sell that full collection, they'd probably get €50 for it. So it's, we're always coming up with new ways to give back to our communities. When we do launch our book, I plan to give everyone in our community our book for free. And the reason I do that is I just believe in giving back more than you try to get. And it comes. It really does. Because, and here's the funny thing, and as I mentioned before, is that players stay with you then. They don't care about what you're publishing. They care about you as a person. They care about you as a kind of developer. And they also care about the other people within the community. That's the important thing too. We don't try and build this toxic community where, people are at each other's throats and stuff like that. It's not about that. It's about, a good community that has good values, that is fair to everyone, that anyone can be involved. There's no barriers to entry, no kind of, no weird stuff of any type. So it's just a good community to be in, and that is the way you grow your kind of network and, kind of girth the players within the space. And also, that includes, the generic methodologies like putting out trailers, putting out, social content. But everyone's told you to do that a million times anyway. But the true secret to do it is to have a great community. Because what people don't realize is right now, I can guarantee you that most people and most game developers could increase their sales by 10% instantly. And that is by working with the community that they already have, rather
Mm.
than always trying to get new people. Like,
Yeah.
here's the thing.
Taking care of the people who are already in your
Yeah,
community and not trying to forget what you already have and trying to reach for more.
yeah. The grass isn't always greener. And it's very important. It really isn't. Like, and I see so many, like, I remember we were working with, because at this point in our studio, kind of where we're at now, a lot of new studio owners reach out to me and, look for help.
Mm-hmm.
Because they just want some pointers, and they're saying, okay, this guy's done it. He hasn't got any, he didn't have mass cash injection to get things going. He's done it himself. How do you do it? What can I do to replicate something similar you've done? So when a lot of people reach out to me, the first thing they're all saying is, and the first question they ask is, how do I get new players? That's usually it. That's usually the first question. I can't get enough players. And and the first thing I'll say to them is, how many players do you have right now? And I remember one occasion, a guy said to me, I have 150,000 current players on my game, but I want more.
150,000.
And I kind of looked at him and I was just like, I was like, you don't need any more players. I was like, that is enough. Like 150,000. I was like, how are you interacting with them? And his response was that, we put out a social media post once every month. And I was like, okay, you can probably increase your, like, everything by double with that number of players. It's just that people don't think of it. Because here's the thing, no one's talking about it. The first thing a game developer does is when they have a problem in their game, like say, for example, a piece of code isn't working or they need help with a model, first thing to do is go on Google and search the problem. And usually the first solution is, for a program, they find their solution because someone's probably already posted it on like Stack Overflow or something. But when it comes to marketing your games, anytime you type anything in, the first thing you see is run new, social media content, all these different elements that everyone's already doing. And no one is saying, look after the people that you already have. It's very important. And the other thing too important is talk to other developers. Like it's a strange kind of, some studios have this weird thing where they think, everyone's against each other. This is a competition to the top. There's not enough room for everyone. There's a lot of room for every single person in the game dev space. I can tell you that now. It's all about building a solid network also of connections. Like I can tell you now that how many opportunities that I've been provided based upon connections that I've built just by talking to people and just by being authentic and not trying to shill them something consistently. And it all comes back to that, just being genuine. If you've local networking events, go to the networking events, give your ideas, be genuine, try to help people. And then you will get then you will get rewarded for that. Like I personally love to do, at Comic-Cons, I always do like a keynote speech. I always do any local event. I'll always do a keynote. And I feel it's very important to be active and constantly speaking within the space because not a lot of people are doing it.
Is a specific example.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, we can all learn from everyone else's experiences. And I think that's very important. But the other thing to know is, and one of the other big secrets to really, which are regards to how your game can maybe get new players, be successful and all this, you've got to work ungodly hours. Like you have to work very hard. Like I can tell you, for an example, on our end, I personally haven't had a day off since I started.
Since 4 years ago that you started.
Since I started learning, probably I'd say since I was about 15. I'm 22 now. So I haven't, last 7-8 years, I haven't taken a day off at all. That includes Christmas. Every day, 18 hours a day, working at this goal. And this goal is I want the game to work. I really do. You've got to have this ungodly work ethic to succeed, because here's the thing to remember, and this is a very important element, is that there will always be someone that wants to work harder than you. And this is what I like to think, this is, if you're sitting on the weekends being like, I really want my game to succeed, I really do, but it's just not happening.
And then you're having a party and then you don't work on that.
Yeah.
But then, there's someone that is going to stay over the weekend and then who's going to work on that.
Yeah, exactly. Like people ask me, people ask, and like, a lot of people ask me, especially older guys within the game dev space that are
Hmm.
maybe in their late 40s and it hasn't worked out for them. They say, you've got farther than me and than I have in 20 years, and you've only been in the space a few years. It's just not fair. And
No,
I
come
say
on.
to them,
Yeah,
yeah, and I say to them, my response always is, you may have been in the space for 20 years, but I have worked more hours than you have
yeah.
within those 20 years. Like, I'm pulling for every day I work. This is what drives me.
Hmm.
For every day I work, on average, I'm getting 3 days on everyone else because, most people are only working 6 to 8 hours a day, realistically, if even, whereas I'm doing 18. I'll outwork anyone. And the reason I do that is not because, and it's not because I want to see others, fail or anything like that. It's because I genuinely love what I do.
Yeah, as
Like,
long as
I
you love
really
it,
do.
then you're going to really put the hours into it, and it's not you're not going to feel it. It's going to be, and
Yeah.
also I think for you, it's not something that you are okay. It's not something heavy for you. This is something that you love, and then it goes really maybe it goes really fast for you all the time that you have to spend on this.
Yeah, well, I'm approaching nearly a decade over the next few years now with it working on this,
Hmm.
and it feels like yesterday I started. It's and obviously throughout that period it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There is periods of ups and downs. No one has consistently, you're at the top. It's not a linear path to success. It's a windy one, but it's a path worth taking. If this is a journey that someone wants to embark on, you have to embrace. And you have to, and this is why I like to explain to people, if you look at, like, say, for example, let's look at Lord of the Rings. If you look at Lord of the Rings, uh, Frodo didn't get to the, Mount Doom straight on a linear path. He didn't just walk there. It was a windy road he had to take with everything. A game, if you think of it in a game's perspective, a game where the player had a linear path to success wouldn't be a fun one. It's about them troughs and hollows there. That's what makes it enjoyable. And that's the thing as well that within the game dev space. Like, for example, you know, a trough that maybe the game dev space has had this year and the whole world has been COVID. But it's about how can we embrace that and how can we evolve with that and how can we improve maybe our own processes by these events that happen, because it's all about learning. And, I think that's one thing that people get caught into also is that once you've done something that's worked once, people seem to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. But they don't realize that you have to keep changing. You have to keep evolving. That while something may work on a Tuesday, it doesn't mean it's going to work on a Wednesday, or it doesn't mean it's going to work next Tuesday. It's very important to always evolve, always be trying new things, because the ones who succeed within the space are the ones who are evolving and are changing with what is they're flowing with the river. They're not trying to swim against it. And it's very important to do that. And I think that, what I've learned over the years of being in the space is that is what drives you to a success. And here's the thing, right? Success very kind of controversial in the fact that what is success? Like, success to you might be different to me. Like, to me, in my own opinion, do I class myself as successful? No, I don't. Not yet. And that's an interesting topic because everyone else that looks in is like, oh, you're super successful. You've multiple, companies. You're doing this. You're doing all these things. You've loads of all this stuff. And I say, yes, but that's success to you. Success to me is very different. Success to me looks like I can tell you right now, my goals within game development and the goal that I set out to finish, and I will finish it, is that I want to publish a game that I am proud of, that I can say that people talk about for a very long time, that's remembered. I want to leave a legacy. And, a game that I like to describe and is Doom.
Hmm.
You look
How?
at Doom.
Hmm.
It's everyone knows what Doom is. Everyone
Mm.
knows, who made it. Everyone knows what it did for the space. That's what I want to do. I want to
Mm.
publish a title that is going to redefine what we establish within the space. And I feel that, the genre I feel that we're going to do that in is the Halloween genre. It's a
Mm.
genre that's not tapped into at all. No one makes Halloween games really.
No.
It's a very, and I feel that we can do that. And I think everyone has to set their own goals. And maybe, it's all about your journey to reaching them goals. Because here's the thing also, once I reach that goal,
Hmm.
and once anyone reaches a goal within game development, you're going to set yourself a new goal. Because,
Yeah.
and the thing to realize, and I think it's a life lesson also, is it's not about reaching your goals. It's about the journey to
Journey
reaching
within.
those
Yeah.
goals.
I agree.
Yeah, it is. It's very important because if you just focus on the macro goals that you're reaching, and this comes back to as a business owner too, like if you just say, I want to get 100 players. Well, if you get 100 players, what's next?
Yeah, it's a loose game because either you reach your goal, then you stay on there, and then nothing. Yeah, there's if that was your end goal, you reach it, and there's nothing else to go for. On the other side, if you don't reach it, then yeah, you're also not going to be happy because you didn't reach your goal. So that's a lose situation.
Yeah, and that's a destructive cycle that people get into. And I suppose that is when people get stuck in things like development hell within game development and all these different negative factors, that are kind of associated with the space. It's important to always focus on the journey. If you're not enjoying it, then there's something wrong and you need to change things, because I can tell you now that once you do reach your macro goal or your smaller goal, you're going to set a bigger goal. And then after you reach that, it's going to be a bigger one and bigger one. And it's a destructive cycle. So it's very important to actually take that into account, especially as a newer developer, because at the end of the day, it is important because, game development is not only a technical battle when it comes to developing the best product. It's a mental battle too, as a developer, to get over those hurdles, to get over those challenges, to make a product to actually get it out there, to take something from nothing to something, and
Yeah,
then to get that out into the market.
the process.
That
That
is a
process. Yeah.
yeah, it's very it's intriguing, but it's challenging, and it's definitely one of those things. And for anyone that is starting out,
Hmm.
when you get up to the level of console platform publishing, it goes to another level. It's even harder. There's even more rules. Everything's more stricter.
Mm.
So it's definitely gets more interesting as it goes on, and it's constantly evolving challenge. The way I like to acquaint it is like it's like New Game Plus and Dark Souls.
Why is it?
So it's like New Game Plus when you get to like the console, like when you start publishing games on like consoles, so like
Hmm.
Xbox and PlayStation, it's like starting New Game Plus on Dark Souls. So
Ah,
New Game
uh-huh.
Plus, where it's like extra difficult, like the damage multipliers are multiplied by 5 and stuff like that. So it's much harder. So it's
uh,
good.
so for enjoying the process, so what do you suggest to other game developers? One part is that enjoying the process of creating the game, but also I think one other important part is to create games focus on your passions, also something that you really like. In your case, you were saying that you really like Halloween, so that also helps you to enjoy the journey of creating games.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. So I love Halloween. I've always been a massive fan of it. I
Why
think
is
it's
it?
the best time.
What do you have? What's the specific that you like Halloween?
So I suppose with Halloween, it's a tricky one.
Hmm.
I've always been a massive fan of like Tolkien lore and, kind of, I love lore-rich games. I love games that have I love things that have a massive story to them. Because I always think the story is what carries things. And Halloween, specifically in Ireland, has a very rich story to it, has a very rich kind of lore to it. And, I just find it intriguing. Like, Christmas and everything else, it's just kind of like, yeah, okay. There's no real meat to the bone. Whereas with Halloween, it's so interesting. There's so much kind of nuances to it. There's so much elements, especially from not only a folklore perspective, but from a festive perspective, the different takes on it. There's the Halloween where, it's just kids running around collecting candy. And then there's the dark kind of dusky Halloween, where you potentially have like, a serial killer, kind of hiding in a woods, chasing people. So there's so many different elements and takes to it that you can do anything with Halloween. You can even do Halloween Christmas. Like it's endless. I just think Halloween is such a unique beast as a festivity that you can do anything with it. And I just think that during the year, I'm happiest to Halloween. I love Halloween. I love the festivities. I love just the atmosphere, the way like in Ireland and Halloween, the way the trees go, the way the
Mm.
weather looks,
Also,
it's
the
all
environment
very,
that you get with Halloween.
yeah, it's very ominous, it's very kind of, it's very, kind of that spooky atmosphere,
Hmm.
kind of, I don't know, I just love it. I've always loved it. And I think that, that's just helped me make games because, I just think that the festivities and the way it's portrayed is just so unique and is, so transcendent among other kind of festivities. And I think why I specifically chose that as the kind of launching point for what we were going to publish most of our games based upon is the fact that a lot of people also are on holidays around Halloween period. They've time off, so they've time
Mm.
to play games.
Ah,
So
nice.
there's, and the other element was, and this was and I seen a market gap too, obviously, because, when people were speaking about Halloween online,
Mhm.
the one they'd refer to would be like Costume Quest. And
Yeah,
that was made
that's
like,
typical.
that was, yeah, that was made like years ago. There's been nothing really since. And so it's kind of, and everyone's like, oh, every year I boot that up. And, I know I'm not the only one who loves Halloween. Like
Mm.
we've a couple of players who are Halloween kind of like, fanatics, and
Mm.
they're like, okay, yeah, Halloween comes around, we're going to boot up Stratton Studios new game, we're going to play that, and it's going to be
So
good.
that helps you also to strengthen the community. So other people who are also passionate for Halloween, they are really you have a strong bond with them.
Yeah, yeah, because we talk about Halloween too, and that's the thing. Like, it's a, it's a funny, it's a funny take on it because, like, anytime we're announcing our game or we're talking about anything, some of the players are saying like, oh, where's the Halloween reference? When are we going to get that in? So they're kind of they're waiting for it, and it's a fun little thing. And as we're doing it over the years, people are enjoying it, and we're enjoying it too. So, kind of Halloween comes around, October rolls around. That's when we start to come alive on social channels,
Mm.
really. That's when, every day we're publishing new Halloween related content. Even throughout the year, we're publishing Halloween related content, like we miss Halloween and all this stuff. So it's good. Um, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, interesting. It's so it's going to be in 4 months more or less. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be, yeah, so around 4 months. Currently this year, the title that we're working on, we haven't announced it yet. It's extremely late that we haven't announced the game. But it's very different what we're working on. It's like, it's nothing that we've ever done before. We've published some screenshots on social media. So essentially, if anyone wants to look, they can. But essentially what it is people are describing it to games like Limbo or kind of inside. It's a puzzle platformer kind of 2D side scroller where essentially the player takes on the role of this creature who is the last of his race, and he is dived into a world where essentially everything is trying to get him. And it's about his journey, about his own journey of discovery and his own journey of, kind of why is he there? Who is he? And why are people trying to get him? That's so it's a very unique title. So we've been working on that for the last year, and we're also developing currently another title that is a sequel to Costume Kingdom. So our last title. So we're currently working on a sequel to that. That's going to be one of our biggest titles yet. And that's actually going to be a 3-year dev cycle. So it's quite a long dev cycle. But for us anyway, and it's it's going to be good. That's going to be a massive game, and we've also published some screenshots of that. So we're always busy. We every week we like to share an update about our games to our kind of community and to the wider world, and we just enjoying the journey. One thing I think we've switched to over the last 12 months is now we're publishing games when they're ready rather
Hmm.
than forcing ourselves on deadlines, if that makes sense. Because
So you don't set a release date and then you try to release for that date. It's when it's ready, then you release it.
yeah, that's what we're doing at the moment. And we used to set a date and push for that date.
Hmm.
The reason we're not doing that right now is because we want to go further. We want to step up the quality. We want to
Mm.
make everything 10 times better. We're not just happy with each game being twice better. We want it to be 100 times better. We want it to be 1,000 times better. And to do that, we have to take the time to work on it. And what we're actually starting to do is, and this is the first game we're doing it on, we're releasing like alphas, we're releasing, early versions to
Hmm.
players to get their feedback. So potentially we may see an early version around Halloween on the stores. We may
Mm.
see that. We haven't decided what we're going to do on that yet. I'm still kind of thinking about it. So we may see like a demo version around Halloween because I do love Halloween, and I kind of
Yeah,
would
you
hate
have
to
to
break the
release it,
cycle.
release something. No, I was
Yeah.
looking forward to these games. I will be, yeah, I will be there checking what's coming on.
Yeah, it's
And tell me
good.
about the book that you were describing at the beginning. What's the plan?
Yep.
What's it going to be about?
So our first title, for anyone that doesn't know, was called The One We Found. The One We Found was a first-person survival horror shooter, and that was published on Xbox One back in 2018. And essentially, it was the story of the game is so the book is based on the game. The book is because the game actually won a couple of awards for its story and its narrative. So people really liked the story and the narrative that we came up with. So we decided to make a book upon it, and actually an audio book too. So we're currently working on that also. So they're going to release together. But essentially what the book is, it's about this psychotherapist in a mental institution called Whisperwood. Mental institution, essentially you take on the role of this character who is locked inside this asylum, and recently there was a cave network underneath the asylum that has been unearthed, and it's about James's, who's the main character's name. It's about James's journey discovering what happened to the asylum and why there is this cave network beneath, and there's strange things going on in the asylum, and why these things are happening related to the items that are in the cave, and how this is all working together, what has happened, and throughout the book and the game, the character starts to question their own sanity. What are they seeing things, or are these things real? What's actually happening? Because throughout the game, the player is suffering from what's called a TIA, so a transient isometric attack, which essentially it's like blackouts, which transports them to this other world called the membrane, which essentially is like this kind of weird, kind of murky environment where they're facing this entity and that's constantly chasing them. And it's throughout their journey a discovery of kind of what happened in the asylum and how it all comes together. So people love the game. yeah, that was our very first title, the one we found, and people did like it, and will do a sequel to that eventually. There will be a new version of the game eventually, but I thought, everyone was saying, or with the feedback we were getting from players was, hey, we love the story, we'd love to see this into like, a short kind of movie or maybe even a book. So I said, okay, we'll start with a book and we'll see how we go from there.
Yeah, hopefully it seems a really interesting story. Hopefully, yeah, also for a movie it would be interesting to see. How was
Yeah.
this creative process? So was it a story that you had in mind some time ago, or was it also that you developed this story with the team?
Yeah. So typically the way we work internally is I come up with the initial concept. So I'll
Hmm.
come up with, so for example, with the one we found, essentially the way it worked was I worked out like a first draft or first read, and then the team along with, kind of everyone that's anyway associated with the studio kind of reads it and then chips in saying, oh, I don't really like that. I like this. Let's switch this around. So it's a very collaborative process, but the core concept always comes from kind of my vision for what I think it should be,
Hmm.
and then we kind of refine it in from there.
Mm,
And that's kind of how we work with that. And that's across all our titles.
nice. Maybe
Yeah.
final question. How did you structure the team in general for your studio? So you are the managing director, and how is structured the roles that you have? Probably you have a designer, you have the programmer. How do you structure your team?
Yeah, so I'm managing director. I'm very hands-on managing director, and what I mean by that is that I'm typically working on the games also with the team. I just don't take a backseat approach to
Mm.
anything. Involved in them more. Typically, though, the way we work is we have, obviously we've all the business related roles like HR,
Mm.
BDMs, all the normal business stuff. And then specifically related to design, typically, um, the way we have an external like level designer who comes in and works with us when we are developing our levels out. And I'll work with them very closely along with some of our kind of junior programmers and stuff like that. So we kind of work based on a tiered level structure. So kind of essentially each person manages three staff members essentially. So for example, I'll manage the head level designer, head of programming and stuff like that. And then they'll have some people beneath them and we get as many people as needed. So the studio size changes quite quickly. Like for example, when we're ramped up full tilt, we could have 18 people working with us. Um, and then when we are kind of, just coming up to release when, just after release when, 2, 3 months after release when we're maybe just working on the concepts for our next title and supporting our current title, it might go down to maybe 5 or 6. So it changes and scales quite quickly, but we've a very tight knit team of kind of people. But I like to delegate everything to people who are specialties in that field. So what I mean by that is, if we're working on a map, I want to be talking to a level designer to help us with that map. If we're working on character creation, okay, I want to be working with a concept artist. And, so we work very similar to a film studio in the way that the cycles change with regards to employee numbers. That's the closest thing I could compare it to. And I suppose it's quite ironic because, on the Lovers Digital side of things, we work very closely with film studios. So that's probably why we take that approach, is because that's just what I'm most used to.
And finally, maybe some final words for new game developers. I think you have already given a lot of advice, marketing advice, how to structure their game development. Yeah, thanks a lot for that. Maybe something else that you want to add for maybe some advice for new game developers?
Yeah, I think the most important, and I think this is for even game developers that have been in the industry, a long time, is the most important thing about game development is your why. And that's a key element to success within the game dev space, and achieving the results that you want to achieve as a human being and as a person is your why. And hone in on that, your why. And what I mean by your why is, why are you doing this in the place? And if that is well seeded and that is well founded in strong belief and strong methodologies, it will carry you through all the challenges you face. Like, I could give you a solution to one challenge right here, right now, but that's useless, because you will come up again another challenge. And I believe in teaching people and showing people how to overcome challenges as a whole rather than a specific challenge, because then you can overcome challenges without the help of someone else. You can grow as a person. So the thing about it is to overcome your why, or to understand your why and use that to overcome any challenges that you may face. So, for example, the why for me is, I want to, as I said earlier, I want to make a game that every player, that hundreds of players will remember and enjoy, a legacy. That's my why. I want this to work. That's my core why, and that drives everything else. And the other important thing I would say to developers based upon that is never give up on it. Like, some days you may just feel terrible. You may just feel like this is not for me anymore. It's just not working. No one's playing my game. It happens. It happens, and it will continue to happen. But listen, the important thing to remember is that there is always someone out there who will play your game. There is always someone out there who will be willing to listen, who'll be willing to try. And, you've got to hang on to that. And you've got to remember that the only difference between can and can't is one letter. Like, that's literally it. You've got to just keep pushing ahead. Keep your core why in the back of your mind, and that'll get you through. And never give up. Never feel like that, you've tried so hard and you fell short. You're not going to do it. It's not cut out for you, because you will do it. Because oftentimes the times you feel like you are most farthest away from your goal is often when you are just about to achieve your goal. And many people don't realize that. And I've experienced that multiple times throughout my career, where I felt, listen, this just isn't working. I've thought, listen, I just can't do this. I'm not cut out for this. Everyone else knows everything and I know nothing, and this is just not for me. And then I always take a step back. Anytime that happens, I take a step back and I say, okay, what's my why? Have I stuck to that goal? Have I stuck to that vision? And if I have, and if I've tried my hardest, well, that's good enough for me. And, I think that's very important. The other thing I would say specifically related to new developers is, when you're starting out, is be very careful with your finances. And what I mean by that is, don't put yourself in 200, 300k debt, buying up equipment and all this stuff for game dev. Do not do that. Work with what you've got. Starting out with studio, our first, one of our first titles, I think we made it with, €600 or something like that. It was very, very minimal. Obviously now, when we're ramping up onto bigger titles, obviously it's in the tens of thousands.
Need more budget.
It costs more money, but that comes with time. Don't just try and say, a lot of people come to me and they say, AAA games cost $1 million to make, so I'm going to mortgage my house to make a game. And I'm just like, do not do that.
Have you heard those actual stories? People mortgaging their home. Wow.
I've spoken to people who have. I've spoken to a couple of people who've got themselves into very bad positions based upon listening to what other people have said related to, diving head in. In the business community, there's this big thing of, you've got to put it all out on the ground. You've got to make it work. You've got to just, fake it till you make it type thing. And it just, like, there is that element to it, but there's also stupidity and in that also. And it's the only way to describe it. Like, you can't, if you're just starting your studio out, the first thing you should be doing is just, working with what you have. Even if you look at Minecraft, it was just cubes, paint, make it work with whatever you've got, really. Like, that's really it. And, you will be successful. And, the one thing I would say to any small developers who maybe have a very specific problem and are in a tight spot at the moment, just reach out, reach out to us via socials, join our Discord, do whatever. And, get in touch with me and I'll do my best to help you. I'm always open to help anyone, because I know that when I started out, there was very little help out there. It was very, do it yourself. So I can appreciate that support there would be very, very helpful. And, I think that's important. And as I say, the only thing I ask for that is that you just pass that on to someone else. And what I mean by that is someone asks you for help on something, just help them. Take 10 minutes out of your day, take 20 minutes out of your day to help someone, because it pays off in the long run. It really does.
Nice. For this, how can people contact you?
Yeah, so specifically, if they'd like to get in touch with me, your best spot to get in touch would probably be to join our Discord, which you can find via like our Twitter or our Instagram. Or even via our YouTube. You can just comment on one of our YouTube videos. Just it's Stratton Studios across all channels.
Good.
And just reach out. You'll probably get in touch with Uriah first, but just essentially say you'd like to talk to Josh and he'll pass you right through.
Perfect. Nice. And also I will put the your social media descriptions. I will put them here in the video. And also in the description of the video, I will also put them.
That's perfect.
Good, man.
Good.
Thanks a lot, Josh. It was a pleasure to have this interview with you. I believe a lot of people will benefit from this, and yeah, we'll learn a lot from you.
Yeah, no, that's no problem at all. As I said, it's a pleasure to talk to you, and I love just speaking to people within the space. It's great.
Good. Thanks a lot, Josh. So I hope you liked this interview with Josh. Don't forget to visit his YouTube channel, also his Instagram and his Twitter account. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you're aware of the next interviews that we have in this channel. Thanks, and until the next time.